Yeah, nice Paula Cole. Dan and Amy, good morning. Following up on our discussion about weak men at the end of last hour. And I'll tell you what, I think we should fold Dave Seminara, our next guest, into this conversation. We got a lot to talk with him about, but I want to get his perspective. He's a raconteur. He is a bon vivant. He is a globetrotter. He may have something to say about this. Dave Seminara is also a former diplomat and the author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Ken. And I liked all of that introduction except for the bon vivant part. I don't want to be a bon vivant.
All right, it's too effeminate. Is that it?
Yeah. Yes.
So we were talking at the last hour about these fights at the school board level on all fronts: COVID, CRT, other identitarian political battles like over pronoun usage. And it's all the women doing the fighting, and it's a conversation we've had on the show before, but Tucker Carlson also weighed in on this in an interview he gave to Glenn Beck, talking about how, we just have so many weak men, and so you don't see men as material in these battles over really civilizational issues like K through 12 education. And there's so many angry women, Tucker Carlson argues, because there are so many weak men in their lives. And I wanted you to weigh in on that about weak men and angry women, and the fact, that Tucker said, and I agree, this is a fact. If you get this fundamental truth of the natural world wrong, there's a difference between men and women, then you unleash all sorts of horribles.
Well, I usually watch Tucker every day, except there was an exception for the last 2 weeks because the U.S. Open tennis was on. So I actually missed that, although for me, Tucker is usually must-watch television, but I missed that. But that's sort of an interesting theory. I don't know, weak men. I mean, we're being told to be quiet about a lot of different issues, aren't we? Like, God forbid if, for example, the abortion issue, I think there was a reporter who asked Jem a question about abortion, and didn't she basically tell him, well, how dare you even speak, because
you don't know what it's like to be pregnant
about things like this.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think on some issues we're actively being told to be quiet, especially abortion. Like, how dare you have an opinion about that? And I think regarding the school board, issues and stuff like that, I have to say, I mean, women are more involved with their children's education to begin with. I think a lot of men, I don't know if it's from weakness or lack of interest, are not very involved in what their kids are doing. They're not the ones who are helping them with their homework. They're not the ones going to the school board meetings, and they're sort of detached and uninvolved. But I don't know if that's because of weakness or what it is. What do you think? What's your theory?
Well, they've never been needed more to be involved than right now. This is when they need to step up. This is when we need them to help. And instead, in our neighborhood, the men are just masking up and doing the half moon around people, and the men are the ones that are masked up and not the women. It's the strangest thing.
Well, there's two things too, Dave. One is, just because someone tells you that you're not allowed to speak doesn't mean you have to abide their directive. Number two, as I was mentioning last hour, there are men on the school boards. There are men as teachers. There are men as administrators. So they have a material day-to-day involvement in the school boards, and yet we don't hear from them either, except to the extent they're folded in with the left orthodoxy. So I think it's more than just, dad's too busy at work to go to a school board meeting. There's something cultural happening that has happened.
That could be. I mean, I'll tell you from my part, regarding the masking issue, I tried to get involved. My kids are in Catholic schools here in Florida. We used to, they started out kindergarten. We were in Illinois, and we actually lived in River Forest and then in Evanston. So we've been in Catholic schools there. Now we're out in Florida, and the Catholic schools here, I thought was going to be a different picture. I mean, the media pictures Florida as this really free place, and it is to a degree. However, our kids were required to wear masks too. Like, they told us over the summer that the kids were not going to have to wear masks, and I thought, oh, thank God, finally the kids are going to be free this school year, But literally 2 days into the school year, they changed the policy, and they said, no, now they are going to have to be masked. And I sent an email to the superintendent of schools for the diocese here and said, well, what about vaccinated children? Because my older son is actually old enough to be vaccinated. He's an 8th grader. He's already been vaccinated. Why do vaccinated children have to wear a mask all day long in school? And I got back such a bizarre reply. I got this bizarre reply where the guy sent back all kinds of links to studies about the efficacy of masks. And I said, that really wasn't what I asked you. I asked about why do vaccinated children have to wear masks all day long? And I never got another reply. So I tried to get a little bit involved here. But a lot of times I think in a case, too, where you've got a husband and wife, they don't agree on the issue. To be honest with you, my wife, is fine with the kids wearing masks all day long. Her attitude is, well, why not err on the side of caution? So I think in a lot of cases, a lot of marriages, maybe the husband and the wife don't agree on it, so the husband is taking a back seat. Could that be?
That's clearly going on. There's no question about it. But I'd love to see, by the way, the links to those studies that reportedly prove mask efficacy. But also, you also have the governor issuing a statewide ban on mask mandates that's been upheld, at least for now, by the first district appellate court. So a lot of these schools, you have the governor that has your back in the state of Florida, and so it seems to me an opportunity to prosecute the case.
Yeah, no, it could be. I don't know what's gonna happen here with that, to be honest with you. I think that our kids are going to be masked here for a very long time, because the metrics they sent us was that it had to be something like fewer than 100 cases per 100,000 in the population. At the time here in Florida, we were like 600. And I thought, really, when are we going to get to, and it had to be test positive of less than 10%. I thought, really? I mean, my kids, they just joined this school like 2 years ago. Are they going to, and my one kid is in 8th grade, is he going to graduate from the school never having seen like anyone's face, any of his teachers' faces? Is he going to graduate from the school without ever having seen one of his friends like smile in the class? Of course, he sees them outside smiling and stuff like that. But I mean, really? It's just, when does it end? I don't know.
I'll tell you what, Dave, since I care more about Florida than I do Illinois, because Florida cares more about itself than Illinois cares about itself, I'll take up this, and especially because it's a Catholic school. Just leave the school name with our producer there, and I'll take up that fight. We'll go talk to the Catholic school. I'm happy to do that.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I want to get to some of the other things that you've written recently, including a call for to rethink the 5-day work week, to go to a 4-day work week, so that you have more time to travel the globe.
No, it's not just that. Think about it. When do you spend your money? I think this would be tremendous for the economy, a few different reasons. You spend your money when you have time off, right? Think about it. Look at your credit card bills. When are you going out to eat? When are you buying stuff? When are you shopping? It's when you've got free time. I mean, first of all, you have to think about the biggest industry in the country that employs the most people is the travel industry. It's estimated that about 10% of Americans are either directly employed in the travel industry or they work in a related business that benefits from the travel industry. So, I mean, first of all, 4-day work week would be incredible for the travel industry. It'd be great think about restaurants, how badly restaurants have struggled over the last year or two. It'd be great for restaurants, bars, a lot of other businesses. So first of all, I think it would stimulate spending in the economy, which for some people who are already in debt and have big credit card bills, maybe it wouldn't be so great, but I think it'd be great for the economy, for one thing. Secondly, you hear this from employers all over the country. You've had this movement, it's called the Great Resignation. There's been some studies that have shown that something like 40 or 50% of Americans are looking for other jobs, and an unprecedented number of Americans have quit their jobs in the last year. So companies are struggling to hire and recruit, and I think what better way? I mean, I'm not a person for government mandates, as I said in my article. I believe in a free market sort of approach to this. I'm not saying the government should insist upon 4-day work weeks or anything like that. But I think for companies that are struggling to recruit, offering people the option of the 4-day work week, hey, you want to work 4 longer days? Believe me, you're going to get more applications. I think it's an effective recruiting tool, I think. What do you guys think?
Well, and you wrote in your article in the Washington Examiner that 65 years ago, President Richard Nixon brought this up. And why are we still sitting on our hands on this one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something I think at the very least we should be striving toward. I mean, I think, in terms of looking at quality of life and prosperity, we should be seeking to get to a point where we're working less hours, shouldn't we? I mean, shouldn't that be the goal? I don't think, and I think a lot of people have this attitude of, oh, you work really long, it's sort of, you want to put in hours because it makes it seem like you're more hardworking. Well, not necessarily. You're not necessarily more effective because you spent more time at the office. The guy who stays the latest isn't necessarily the most effective, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it's right, smarter, not necessarily longer, not necessarily, although some things are, labor hour intensive. But I appreciate what you're saying in terms of at least rethinking it. And, I mean, I'd love to have Eric in the mornings schedule Amy. I'm sure Amy would too. We take Fridays off, and that's one day where
we could travel.
Yes, they just have some interns spin Maroon 5 records instead of Eric. I wanted to also get to this too. I mean, especially against the backdrop of Afghan refugees that have been brought to this country and Afghan allies that are hopefully all of our allies there get out and get to this country. Those that are deserving of that for aiding and abetting the U.S. military while we were present in Afghanistan. But you talk about sort of in the era of COVID, how Americans are treated to COVID protocols that are much more stringent than people coming from foreign countries, particularly coming from foreign countries that are, much further behind in terms of all of these mitigation efforts, starting with vaccinations, than America is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't looked at this recently, but as of a couple of weeks ago, Guatemala had something like a 5 or a 6% vaccination rate, right? And yet it's interesting how the left is not concerned about this at all, right? They're so concerned about us here in Florida. They're so concerned about the low vaccination rate in, Mississippi. But hey, let's not worry at all about Honduras or Guatemala or all of these countries in Central America who have, unbelievably low vaccination rates and having migrants come in and in many cases not be tested across the border. It's interesting how they're not concerned about that COVID threat, are they?
Well, right, and it also so it says something about both things, about their priorities when it comes to open borders. It also says something perhaps about their real belief as to how much of a threat that COVID poses to the general younger, comorbid suffering population.
Yeah, no, unvaccinated Americans they consider to be a huge threat, but unvaccinated migrants coming from Mexico and Central America, no problem. And the point I tried to get around in the article is I think I've spent like $500 on COVID testing this year as someone who travels internationally with my family. And why do Americans have to be tested on the way back in the border? Our last trip to Ecuador, my 11-year-old had to be tested 3 times total on the trip, and every time it's $40-50. So we had to be tested once to get into Ecuador, another time to get into the Galapagos, and then once to get back into the U.S. So 3 COVID tests within a period of 2 weeks he had.
We had to drive to Kenosha to get tested to go to Hawaii because I only take a certain type of test. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
And so why do Americans have to be tested on the way back in? However, Border Patrol, Customs and Border Patrol, we're relying upon charities and NGOs and other groups, non-governmental groups and local governments to test migrants coming in. And in some cases, they're not being tested at all. So my point is, if you want to come to the U.S. and claim asylum, shouldn't we require a COVID test on the way in? We're not. You can come in without a COVID test, but Americans can't. Why not have some consistency there?
Yeah, well, they can get away with it because, who gets into the details of this except for people like you? And, oh, by the way, just in terms of Florida and vaccinations, too, Florida's a real problem in terms of the vaccination level. It would shock most of the nation to learn that Florida has a higher percentage of its population vaccinated than does Illinois.
Yes, and thank you so much for pointing that out. And also states like Michigan, where Gretchen Whitmer has been ruling with an iron hand. At the last time I looked, their vaccination rate was 6 or 7 points lower than ours. I mean, can you imagine? Would the media ever report that? No.
And the COVID numbers in Florida and in Los Angeles, they're going down right now. So that's a good thing. And no one's reporting that either.
No, and you mentioned Hawaii also, Amy. I mean, Hawaii has the highest vaccination rate in the country, and yet they're having quite a surge. Their hospitals are overwhelmed, and now they're scaling. I believe I read they're scaling back tourism. They're limiting tourism now in Hawaii, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, Hawaii is like our Australia. They're a biometric security state.
That was, or I should have never have gone. Don't do it.
Dave Seminara, former diplomat, author of Footsteps of Federer and Mad Travelers, A Tale of Wanderlust, Greed, and the Quest to Reach the Ends of the Earth. Dave, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, and he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Oh, according to research, 82% of people remember radio ads. That means that 82% of you listening right now will remember that this is an ad for ZipRecruiter. If you're hiring, 82% of you will recall that ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster and easier. And 82% of you will note that you can try ZipRecruiter for free today. But you have to go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. Yes, free. 82% of you will keep in mind that ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified people for your job and actively invites them to apply.
Scott, is that you? Who are you talking to?